Welcome to CET Help. Today I'll be explaining the topic of menstrual cycle. So, the cycle of events from one menstruation to the next one is a is called the menstrual cycle. So, it is a cycle of events that is it occurs periodically and it occurs again and again. This menstrual cycle is found in humans, in females, mammals. So, this is a very common process which is found in the human females, and it is a periodical event that is series of events occur which lead to the menstrual cycle in a regular interval of time. So we will go through the events which lead to the menstrual cycle. Now, I have drawn a cycle and categorized the name of the events into four. So the main events that occur in a menstrual cycle, first is menstruation, follicular phase. After menstruation, there is follicular phase. After follicular phase, ovulation occurs, which leads to the luteal phase, and luteal phase eventually leads to menstruation again. So menstruation occurs in a interval of 28 to 29 days in a general uh, sense. It occurs in it takes about 20 to 29 days in a healthy female body to occur again. First is now some facts about menstruation we will cover first. First, first menstruation is termed as menarche, and this usually occurs to females during their puberty. That is from the age of uh, 13 to some 19 or 20 it may go. So that is when the first period, that is the menarche, occurs during pregnancy. So these all events are connected to the female reproductive system. So when during pregnancy, all the events of menstruation are stopped. When a female gets pregnant, when a human gets pregnant, so the events of menstruation, all of these events will not take place during that time, and it will stop. Temporarily, it will be stopped. Next, phase of menstrual cycle. So, in human females, this cycle will eventually stop permanently, and that is termed as menopause. So the human female in humans, generally the age is 50 years. At the age of 50 years or around that period of time, maybe 45 to 55 or that time, the female human body will undergo some hormonal changes, and this will lead to the complete stopping of the menstrual cycles which occur in a regular interval, and this is termed as menopause. Okay, and it occurs in humans at the age of 50 or around 50. Now, let us get into the events which occur during these phases in a menstrual cycle. Okay, menstrual phase or menstruation, it occurs. What happens during the menstrual phase is the breakdown of the endometrial lining, which is present in the uterus walls. So, the endometrial lining, uterus consists of different layers. So the inside layer is known as the endometrium. The lining, which is formed on the endometrium, it consists of many components like the blood vessels, mainly consists of blood vessels which were present on the lining of the uterus, and these will break down during the menstrual phase. Now, why menstruation occurs is because the fertilization did not occur in the body. So, this is the first phase, and it lasts for about 3 to 7 days around. Now, the second phase, which I am going to explain, is the follicular phase. After menstruation, the follicular phase takes place. So, what happens in follicular phase is the primary follicle. Now, in one of the videos of oogenesis, I had explained that the primary oocyte, which is the premature female gamete, it forms a primary follicle. This primary follicle will gradually mature into a secondary follicle, then tertiary, and it will form a Graafian follicle, which consists of the mature secondary oocyte, which is further, it will lead to the next event, and it will form the mature female gamete, that is the ovum. So, all of these events of the maturation of primary follicle to secondary and eventually Graafian follicle occurs in the follicular phase of a menstrual cycle. So all the events which are mentioned in that video occur in this phase. Along with that, the endometrial lining that was released and which was broken down in the menstrual phase, it starts regenerating during the follicular phase. So the uterine walls see a regeneration of the endometrial lining and the blood vessels. So what happens is it proliferates. Proliferation is a biological term that means increasing in number. So proliferation of the endometrial lining or the blood vessels takes place during the follicular phase, which is the reason why this phase is also called the proliferative phase. It occurs for around 6 to 8 days or a week completely for these events to occur in the follicular phase. Now I'll explain the third and the fourth phases of menstrual cycle. The third phase is the ovulation phase. So ovulation is the release of the ovum, which occurs due to the rupture of the Graafian follicle. The whole process is called as ovulation. The release of the ovum due to the rupture of the Graafian follicle. This is a very natural process, and this occurs in the mid of the menstrual cycle. It is exactly in the mid of the menstrual cycle, around 14th day it occurs. After the ovulation, the next phase is the luteal phase. So, luteal phase is when the uterus is waiting for fertilization to occur. This is around what happens is when the Graafian follicle ruptures, the remaining parts of the Graafian follicle will form a structure called the corpus luteum. This corpus luteum will stay in the ovary, and during this phase, the uterus is waiting for fertilization to occur and the implantation of the fertilized zygote to occur during this phase. What happens in menstrual cycle is there is no fertilization. So due to the absence of fertilization, the corpus luteum will degenerate. This degeneration of the corpus luteum signals the uterus that the fertilization did not occur, and thus it will lead to the disintegration of the endometrial lining eventually. Endometrial lining disintegration. Okay, that is what happens in menstruation. So that so these are what happens are the events which occur in a menstrual cycle. The luteal phase takes place around it takes around 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, the luteal phase takes place, which eventually lead to the degeneration of corpus luteum and then the endometrial lining, which is. I hope you understood the topic. These are the events which occur in a menstrual cycle. Okay. Another important topic which acts in the back of a menstrual cycle is the hormonal cycle. These hormones are released during the menstrual cycle, which trigger the events which are happening in a menstrual cycle. So, I have drawn this graphical diagram, which you can also find in the NCERT textbook. In a hormonal cycle, four hormones are mainly impacting the menstrual cycle. First, two hormones are the pituitary hormones, which are released by the pituitary gland, which is LH and FSH. The other two hormones are the ovarian hormones released by the ovaries. It is estrogen and progesterone. These are very important hormones which decide the occurrence of events in a menstrual cycle. So we have to go through them once. So like I have mentioned, these are the events which are occurring in a menstrual cycle. First is the menstruation. So during the follicular phase, there is release of LH and FSH hormone, which contribute to the development of the follicles in the ovary. Along with that, there is release of estrogen. There is high secretion of estrogen, which contribute to the development or proliferation of the endometrial lining, which also occurs during the follicular phase. So during the mid of the cycle, that is during ovulation, there is an LH surge. So you can see that the LH is increased a lot. That is known as the LH surge, which which is the reason for the rupture of the Graafian follicle. That is the ovulation. So during this phase, there is an LH surge. When it goes to the luteal phase, the the release of progesterone increases in the ovary. This contributes to the maintenance of the endometrial lining. Progesterone is important for the maintenance of endometrial lining, which is why the progesterone is levels are increased during the initial phases of luteal phase. The initial stage of luteal phase, the progesterone increases, and along with that, the estrogen also contributes to the regeneration also of the endometrial lining. So this two hormones of ovarian hormones are increasing during the luteal phase, which eventually will lead to the menstruation, and the cycle will continue. I hope you understood the hormonal cycle.